Hey everybody, Cameraman here with Pruitt Hiking Adventures, and today I'm going to explain exactly what happened to my foot and the future of Pruitt Hiking Adventures. Okay, so for those that don't know, this is going to be kind of an interesting video. It's going to catch you guys up a little bit on what has been happening and why we don't have quite as many videos coming out this time of the year that we normally like to have, because we are waist high in the climbing season. This is the perfect time to climb and do some of the bigger climbing, and yet we are not. And so I wanted to just briefly kind of tell everybody what has happened and what's been going on really over the last few years. So to go back about 4 or 5 years ago, Little Wolf accidentally dropped a giant wooden stool on my bare foot. I was coming out of the kitchen. It was like the worst timing ever. And the stool comes down right on top of my foot, and it swells up like crazy. Like I couldn't stand. We thought for sure it was broken. So we run to the emergency room real quick. They do some x-rays and stuff and say, hey, it's not broken. I'm like, all right, well, it just swelled up really bad, I guess. So the swelling goes away. And over the course of like the next 6 months, there's still this pain in my foot. And I'm like, what is going on here? Like they said it wasn't broken, but maybe there was a hairline fracture. So we go back in, they do some more imaging, no hairline fracture. And I'm going, this is insane. Like I can feel my foot. It hurts just to stand up. And so for years, like literally years, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And every time I walked, every time we were hiking, I would just feel this pain in my foot. And it didn't feel like it was getting worse necessarily, as far as like hiking didn't seem to make it worse. It just hurt to walk. It hurt to stand. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to not hike because I need to get out and I want to be out in the mountains. And so I just kind of keep going. And eventually I go to the VA, go to podiatry, and finally find a doctor who within like 10 seconds of an examination grabs my foot and he pushes up and he goes, right about there. And I said, yep, that's the spot. And he goes, okay, you have a Morton's neuroma. And then I was like, oh, okay, now I have an answer. Now I know what we're dealing with. And basically what had happened was, once that stool dropped right on top of my foot, cartilage had started to build up around the nerve. And there's not a lot of room on your nerve in between your toes. And so what was happening was every time my foot would move, it would just rub right on that nerve, and it hurts bad. And so we went through a whole slew of other options, right? We did some orthotics, and basically the orthotics pushed my space here in between my toes open enough to where it wasn't rubbing. But then I had to have like these special shoes to fit these stupid orthotics. So they didn't fit in my hiking shoes, so I was still hiking in pain. They were literally only fit in these Hoka kind of crazy looking shoes. Anyway, so I used those for a little while. Eventually those kind of just stopped working. Even though I had 2 pairs, I swapped them out. Didn't really do anything. And then we tried steroid shots. So last August, I got my first steroid shot, and it worked great. I mean, I literally did not feel any pain whatsoever. Worked wonderful. And that worked until about February of this year. And then I got another one, waited a few weeks, and it was still hurting, and just realized, okay, it's just not going to work. Like the steroids are done. And now we are literally at the final option, which is a surgery, a Morton's neuroma surgery, to just cut it out. And that's kind of what ultimately has stopped us in the initial stages. Was I had this Morton's neuroma surgery, and basically all they did was they kind of put a block in my brain, so I was asleep. They went in, cut it open, cut the nerve out where the neuroma was, and then sewed it back up. It literally takes 10 minutes. And that's when everything went south. So I'm going to be showing you some pictures of my foot. So for those that are a little bit squeamish or a little bit of skin and blood and stuff, I'm not going to show you the actual surgery. I'm going to show you after and all the stuff that I've went through in the meantime, and why hopefully here in the next 3 or 4 weeks, I'll be healed up and I can start trying to do some hiking again with the kids. So this is what so if you don't want to see any pictures of this stuff, then here's your chance to turn away. Ready? 3, 2, 1. All right, you're good. Okay, so this is what it looked like in the immediate aftermath. Looks really good. You can see all of the stitches. Little bit of redness, which is totally normal. It's kind of what I expected, and this is what it looked like, honestly, for the first, I'd say, almost 2 weeks. So there was 3 weeks until I got the stitches out from the time that I got the surgery done, and during that time, I was trying to be really careful. Like, the biggest thing is when you take a shower, I mean, I was putting it in a bag and everything, trying to keep it dry. It would still get a little wet, so I'd have to let it all air out and all air dry. Trying to be careful not to get it wet, and then putting it all bandaged back up all wet, right? That's a very easy way to get an infection. I was trying to be really careful. I tried to also not be on it. The problem was, not long after my surgery, my wife went on vacation with a friend, and they were gone. And I had 4 other kids. One of my kids was up in Lewiston, and all the other ones were here. So I had to take care of the kids, which meant I was on my foot quite a bit. And they would help. My little wolf would help quite a bit as needed. But that's, I mean, it just is what it was, and I didn't think much of it. I was still watching it. I was trying to ice it, all that kind of stuff. And so it wasn't until, I want to say, the day before she got back, I was looking at my foot, and this is what it looked like. And I'm like, okay, it didn't look like this before, right? It actually looked really good. And then it started getting red and a little puffy, and I thought, okay, maybe something is wrong here, because that doesn't look good. That's not how it's looked before. Redness was okay, but the problem was now it was getting red. I kind of expected this right after to be that kind of red, a little puffy, and then you can kind of see some like pussy stuff start forming, and then it started swelling more, and then you can kind of see some blood and some other stuff. And so I thought, okay, it's definitely infected. Like, this is not good. And so I go into the hospital before my wife gets back, and it was kind of not very good care. They just kind of looked at it and were like, oh, yeah, it's probably fine, whatever, here's some medication. So I take the medication, and it doesn't do anything. After 2 days, I'm like, okay, it's still just getting worse and worse. I think I need to go to a different hospital. So I go to a different hospital, and I end up in that hospital twice. The doctor finally gives me something that seems to be working. It seems to be clearing up the infection, but it got bad. I mean, this is what it looked like the day before I went back into the surgeon. The skin had just started falling off, from the infection. The infected skin is dying off and falling off, which totally makes sense. But at the time, it was freaking me out a little bit, right? And you could see where the doctors had drawn a line around, and the redness was pretty far out here. It had started to go away a little bit. Went into the surgeon. The surgeon cleaned it all up, said, hey, it looks like it's actually getting a lot better. I guess. I mean, it was really gross. And so we start that, I'm getting, they put me on a different oral antibiotic, and did multiple antibiotic infusions. I mean, I'm just doing everything possible to fight this thing, and I'm resting. I'm not working. I am not doing anything, because there was a real concern of sepsis and this infection getting into my bloodstream. And that's kind of, I'm not gonna lie, I don't get concerned or nervous very often, but when they were like, hey, if you start seeing streaks up your leg, red streaks up your leg and all this other stuff, then we have a really big problem. And they did x-rays all the times I went to the hospital. They did do x-rays, except for that first time. They made sure it wasn't getting into the bone. There wasn't really much of a risk of the bone. They were more concerned about getting into the bloodstream. So they tested me for making sure it wasn't getting into the bloodstream and stuff multiple times. Both times I got infected because I ended up with another infection. And then, so after I see the surgeon, and he says everything looks good, he's like, just cut them out, cut out the stitches in a week. So that was like a full month that he wanted me to have these stitches in. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of stitches. Like I can't I can't take it anymore. Then all of a sudden I start getting this rash. And if you see this rash here, okay, this was covering my entire body from like head to toe. I think it first really got bad on my face and my neck. And my wife said it looked like I had been sunburned, but I hadn't been in the sun at all. And so what we believe ended up happening was I had a really bad allergic reaction to the second oral antibiotic, which did help kill the infection. It also just apparently I'm allergic to what I had taken. But I was like that from head to toe. Thankfully, it didn't itch all that much. There was a little bit of itching later on, but honestly, for the most part, it was just like, oh, holy crap! What in the world just happened to my foot and my arms and my legs and my belly and my back and my neck? And like literally from head to toe, I'm covered in this insane rash. And so they're like, okay, we got to get you off this. So then I go into another hospital. This is like my fourth hospital visit. I go into another hospital and they obviously tell me to stop taking that oral antibiotic. They put me on a different one because lo and behold, my foot had become infected again. This is after I already looked pretty good with the doc. The swelling had just exploded again. It started looking really nasty. Again, it just started looking really bad again. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have another infection. And so we go back to the hospital. They put me on another antibiotic and do another IV antibiotic infusion, tell me to rest. And at this time, now I have a fever, and I'd had a fever for I think 5 or 6 days straight. Maybe one day in between there I didn't, and that's because I'd taken so much Tylenol that it kind of knocked down the fever. But I didn't really want that because I wanted the infection to be fought by the fever. But I was so tired. I was tired. I had gotten up to about 103 on the fever, so it was really cranking up. I'm just hot. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I've been fighting this 2 infections now. All of this stuff is happening, and I just want to get out and hike. I'm just like, I want to be outdoors. I want to be out right now with the kids doing some hiking, and eventually, end up talking to a doctor who's in podiatry, is friends with my mother-in-law. So at this time now, we're all the way up in the Tri-Cities in Washington State. And he's like, get the stitches out, just cut them out. Even if the wound, and so part of the reason we never got the stitches out previously is that they were concerned that if they took the stitches out while it was swollen or infected, it might open back up. And this guy said, hey, I wouldn't actually be too concerned if it opens up, because maybe you can see something in there that's wrong, right? Instead of just trying to keep it sealed, maybe there's something wrong deeper inside. And so if it does open up, then that's okay. And so she ends up just a couple days ago finally taking out the stitches. It actually looks better than this now. This is still very, very red and swollen. And so I was still icing, still trying to do everything I can. You can see the skin, the dead skin is just slowly coming off. And but that's kind of what it looks like right now. And it actually looks better. It looks like it's sealing up nicely, and I asked the surgeon. I said, when can I go out and start doing hiking again? He said, honestly, as soon as that skin is solid, that's on the top, you can go out and do whatever your body is comfortable doing. He said it is going to swell because you've got a piece of your body missing. You go out and you start doing hardcore hiking, it is going to swell up. So you just have to be able to withstand whatever the swelling is or whatever pain there might be in the meantime while your body learns to adjust. Now, to be honest, walking around, I don't feel pain anymore, which is fantastic. It's nice to not walk around every time I walk, have to walk funny and everything, which has led kind of to where I'm at right now, which is my back is all messed up. I have a bad back from Iraq. and as many of you know, and I was walking in a boot, right, that had this couple inches of thickness, and I'm walking funny the entire time. And now I start walking normal, and all of a sudden my back goes out, and I've got a muscle spasm or a muscle tear in my back. And so I'm just anyway, when it rains, it pours, right? So that's kind of where we're at with Pruitt Hiking Adventure. So we're going to be doing some, I guess, videos here shortly called "What's It Like to Hike," and then talking about some of the mountains that we've hiked, and hopefully once this is healed over in the next week, 2 weeks or so, we can go out and do some hiking and do some trails that maybe aren't so intense in the beginning, just to see how my body reacts. And then hope maybe by the end of the climbing season, getting up into some of the bigger mountains. If not, we'll have to save them all for next year. But that's just an update on where we're at, and now you guys kind of know what we've been dealing with here in the last month and why we haven't been able to post as many videos as we want to post, and keep you guys informed about everything that's happening. So anyway, that's the update. We appreciate it. If you guys wouldn't mind, again, we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. The boys are working hard this year. They want to get that 1,000 subscribers. So please subscribe. We're at 583. We're over halfway, but it's going to take a lot of work and a lot more of you subscribing to their channel at Pruitt Hiking Adventures on YouTube, and supporting their effort to get outdoors and do a lot more outdoors. So anyway, with that, that's all I've got. We'll see you guys on the next summit.